everyone, and welcome to the September 4th meeting of the Wilton Town Board. I'll now call to order, and we will begin with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Supervisor Johnson.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Stryker.
Here.
Councilwoman Klepetar.
Here.
Councilman Lance.
Here.
Councilman McEachran.
Here. Before we begin the meeting, there's a young man in the audience I'd like to recognize, and that's Arlen Brant Jackson, who's going for his Eagle Scout. Stand up. Want to tell us a little bit about your project?
My project with my...
For your Eagle Scout.
Well, over at the Wilton Wildlife Preserve, they want some sets of stairs built with, they want 2 sets of stairs. Each one will consist of 2 platforms, one at the top of the hill, one at the bottom. The set of stairs and the handrail, stairs, and everything. So it's gonna help get easier access to different spots, the docks that people go on, and it'll make it less dangerous to get there. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first is public comment. We have a couple of folks that have signed up to speak. Just remind our speakers that there is a 3-minute time limitation. First is Linda Morzillo. Yeah, people in Time Warner want to see you and hear you.
You can turn it.
Yeah, come.
I wrote a letter to the Wilton Town Board regarding bike trails and actually multi-use trails in the town of Wilton. Many of you probably have read that the Saratoga City is having a green belt trails around the city, and I believe that Wilton should tie in with this. Many of the roads in our town have become impossibly busy, and anyone who walks on some of these main roads or bikes on some of these main roads is really in a dangerous situation. What I think that the town of Wilton should be thinking about is to think along the lines of having trails to connect to, let's say, Gavin Park, having trails on the shoulders of roads such as Northern Pines Road, which is very, very busy, Jones Road, where in spots there aren't any usable shoulders. The road ends and then it just drops down. There's no place for a bicycle to go. I wrote a letter to the town board just this past month about this, and my husband and I also wrote a letter way back in 2008 proposing bike trails. And at that time, we proposed that we also should have trails connecting neighborhoods. I've done walking in Clifton Park, and in a lot of places, between one street in a neighborhood and another street in a different neighborhood, there's a little wooded trail that goes through where children and adults could bike and walk without having to go out on a main road. We could do that here too. One of the things is that we should keep in mind is that the town owns 15 feet on each side of the pavement. There's room there to have trails and safe passage for people. We can use these roads for snowshoeing and cross-country skiing during the winter time. It's not just limited to the warm months. I want to say that John Woodcock did a very nice job repaving Waller Road and Worth Road, but I also noticed that there are no markings on them. Maybe when it's time to do markings on them, we should have, 4 to 6 feet on one side, just for people who are walking and people who are biking. And that's what I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, we did receive a letter, and I actually, Ryan is in the process of responding to your letter to tell you about the things that we have been doing, many of which your suggestions, which are all very good suggestions, we've already implemented to some extent, particularly we've started this year on putting paving shoulders on some roads that are not designated bike routes. We have always been paving in our pathways plan, the roads that are designated bike route, we have been putting shoulders and widening shoulders on those particular roads, but we have started paving roads, just as you saw on Waller and some of the other ones that are more heavily used to accommodate bicyclists. Roads like Northern Pines are county roads, so those we don't have any jurisdiction over, but we certainly recognize your suggestions, and we are doing what we can, and Ryan is already in the process of responding to tell you, all the things that we have been doing in that regard. So I appreciate your comments. Next is Jim Zach.
Hello, council to the board, and engineer. I'm sure many of you have received this already, but I'd like to read something to you too. As you well know, recently in Saratoga, in the Central School District, they've erected began displaying an electronic animated sign on parcel 153.1-11 in the town of Wilton. This parcel is owned by the school district and is zoned as such. Primary land use for the parcel is outdoor sports, and it is surrounded by tennis courts adjacent to Route 9. The parcel is also adjacent to the Greenfield parcel, which actually contains the middle school. I am appalled by the erection and placement of this electronic sign. The intersection of the school entrance, Loughbury Lake Road, and State 9 is one of the most treacherous intersections in our town. This is going to be exacerbated by the recent construction of the new Saratoga Health and Wellness building, whose driveway is a mere 200 feet to the south of the intersection. The display of the new sign just adds to the distraction drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians encounter, especially during the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and 2 to 4 p.m. The cars along Route 9 are routinely violating New York state law, where driving on the shoulder is illegal. Indeed, on any given school day morning, cars carrying students can be seen queuing up on the southbound shoulder of Route 9 from Daniels Road to the entrance to the middle school. To further compound this situation, drivers, when faced with a stopped vehicle attempting to make a left turn to access the school's entrance, blatantly pass said vehicle by driving on the shoulder, even if there is limited visibility behind, say, a left-hand turning school bus. When reported to the state police, a mere head shaking occurs, and the blame is passed on to either the Department of Transportation or the school district, who likewise shirks responsibility and says it's a state police or DOT matter. And let's not even talk about the crosswalk in front of the school, with clearly visible signs showing two patently insane students crossing a street with black silhouettes on a safety yellow background. In a meta-analysis, which means an analysis of previous analyses of the impact on safety conducted by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, not a single reviewed study shows there is no impact through distraction from such signs. They make recommendations for moderating such impacts, including shorter dwell times, the time the driver actually can see the electronic sign, shorter or longer message transition times, and placement well out of the field of view from passing motorists, and many more recommendations. The time between messages on the school sign is sometimes as rapid as 3 seconds. Furthermore, the wipe and crawler transitions between the messages are completely unnecessary and serve only to attract the attention of passers-by. The display on the sign has the look and feel of a PowerPoint presentation. I also question the protocol for erecting this sign. There is a reason that just last year, the Wilton Town Board restricted such signs to C1 commercial zones. Please tell me where in the Wilton Code is it hinted that the town cedes its right to enforce its code on any property owner within its boundaries? Who paid for this sign? Were any special permits required? Were neighboring property holders made aware of the sign before it came to be? What will happen in the next fog or rainstorm during the night? Will drivers see only the sign and ignore the task at hand? Are there not enough distractions for today's drivers? Cell phone use and texting are major contributors to distracted driving, and we don't need to add an animated electric digital sign to the recipe for disaster. I have additional information, but I'm not going to bore the audience nor the council. It's attached to the document I've passed out, and I'd like to thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jim, and we will have some information later on in the agenda that may address some of the things that you spoke about. Next item is the minutes pending from our August meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll put forth the motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion or recommended changes, amendments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Next, we're going to have a solar power presentation by Ryan Guay. Ryan, welcome.
I'd like to thank the board as well as the council of the board for having me here today to, teach a little bit more about what's going on in the solar industry and how the town of Wilton can benefit from this opportunity. First off, I'd like to start by saying, my name is Ryan Guay. I'm a resident of Middle Grove for the last 25 years of my life. I currently live in Saratoga Springs, so I'm very familiar with the area and the local industries and developments that are going on, which is pretty exciting. For the last 2 years, I've been in the solar industry. I previously worked for Monolith Solar. I grew from the director of field operations to the eventual director of operations, and from there started my own development firm, which is EPC Solar, and I am also the director of operations for Apex Solar Power out of Queensbury. So, very familiar with the area and the solar industry in general. So my team and I have successfully managed over 250 solar projects, totaling over 9 megawatts or 9 million watts over the last 2 years, working with a range of customers from nonprofits to commercial customers. We even did installations over at Knowles Atomic Power Lab, dealing with high security risk work and top secret facilities. So we've definitely been around the block. Our specialty, as far as development goes, was school districts and municipalities. We help to bring a solar energy curriculum as well as an entire installation for all their facilities to over 10 districts, working with the state education department to approve the plans and bring forward to the communities and work with the leaders, the superintendents to bring all these to fruition. New York State right now is really exploding for the solar industry. By next year, it's probably going to be the third largest state for solar installed in the United States, following behind Massachusetts and California. The market has developed at such a great rate that there's all of these national firms coming in for both residential opportunities and commercial opportunities. And in our area, more and more, especially as town budgets shrink and school district budgets shrink, and energy prices are going up exponentially. When you look at this last winter, you can really see that. Solar is an affordable option that, depending on the model, there's no money out of pocket. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the incentives, the structures behind it,
and as well as the potential facilities that the town of Wilton has that can accommodate solar. So the big solar driver in New York State is PON 2112, which is ran by NYSERDA, New York State Research Development and Energy Development Authority. Basically, PON 2112 is a guaranteed submittal program where for systems up to 200 kW, 200,000 watts, get just about automatic funding as long as all the ducks are in a row with the project. All the paperwork is correct, the contracts and everything makes sense. So that has really driven the residential to large commercial projects. A lot of the municipalities that I worked with went through this program because there is another program out there, which is the competitive bid program. Now this is a little bit more complex because it's for larger projects over 200 kW. And I got to backtrack a little bit. Those awards for the 200 kW go per meter of the town. So if you have a meter in the town that uses 100,000 kilowatt hours a year, you have another one that uses 200,000 kilowatt hours a year, and another one that uses 50,000 kilowatt hours a year. As long as you're connecting into those meters, you can go through the automatic program. Now, if you want to take all of those usages and put them on one site, you have to go through the competitive bid program to cover their overall usage, which I'm going to show you kind of some of the models that I've worked with, both with Mr. Piper and Mr. Reel over the last couple weeks to explore those options. So the federal investment tax credit is the second driver on a national level. You get a 30% investment tax credit that you can literally pay your taxes with if you invest in a solar project. So this has allowed, companies on Wall Street, big banks, big companies that have a really big tax liability to say, hey, I want to get rid of that tax liability. I'm going to go out, I'm going to invest in some solar, I'm going to get a return on my investment, and I can pay my taxes with this credit. So with the combination of both state and federal incentives plus kind of, complex, not too complex, but just advanced financing methods, you can really bring any good project to life. So, net metering is another one of these big drivers of solar growth. With the net metering program, it allows customers who generate their own electricity from solar power to feed it back into the grid. And, like I was saying with that example, if you have one meter with 50,000 kilowatt hours a year of usage, one with 100,000 kilowatt hours a year usage, one with 200, you can net meter the 100,000 kilowatt hours a year virtually to the 50,000 kilowatt hours a year and build a system that's going to cover both of their usages. So it allows, properties that don't have that great a potential for solar to still take advantage of it as long as the account name is still the same for that user. But as you can see in that little graph to the side, National Grid's capacity for net metering is rapidly shrinking. It went up, 30% just in the last couple months. So, hopefully the PSC is going to come up with, kind of an expansion of this so that doesn't necessarily kill commercial solar in, National Grid's territory. But, we're going to have to see. But, there's still a pretty good window in the next couple of months for places like, the town of Wilton to jump on board and take advantage of this. So some of the local communities going solar that I've worked with, the city of Schenectady, we just got done with a 3,000 panel project. That's what you see above there on their water treatment or their water storage facility. That's actually an underground water tank, concrete water tank with 3 feet of soil on top. The county of Schenectady, the town of Queensbury, we did on their municipal buildings, their water treatment facilities. We did 6 buildings total for close to 500,000 watts. City of Amsterdam, Schuylerville School District, Skodak School District. We haven't worked with the City of Saratoga yet. We're hoping that we can do some of the contracting work for them as part of Apex when Sun Edison actually pushes the project through. But they've signed a contract with Sun Edison to do a project on their landfill, but because it's a little bit more complicated, which I'm going to get into with Town of Wilton's landfill, you know, it was a little harder to get approved, to get the financing through NYSERDA through there. So some of the locations that we've looked at so far are the Town of Wilton landfill, the Municipal Center, in this complex of buildings, the Gavin Park Recreational Center, and the Wilton Wildlife Preserve Grounds. Now, we didn't talk about the preserve grounds. I'm kind of just bringing that up now because I just discovered that, you know, there was some land there, even though it is put aside for, you know, wildlife and that reason to preserve it. But it's just another option of types of places that we can put these systems. So this is the landfill site behind Target. This is a project that, you know, it could be a little bit difficult to finance, because if we were to put all of the usage for the town, every single building and meter that the town pays, we would have to go through that competitive bid program. Well, the last competitive bid program just closed in July, so they don't know when the next one's going to open, and they're kind of reconfiguring the entire program, which is going to start after December. So with that 88% of national grid capacity being taken up, it's one of those things where, you know, you want to jump on this as soon as possible. And when I show you the financial breakdown of what it will save the city over the town over the next 20 years, you know, you're going to definitely kind of jump on board quicker than you would think. Obviously, Municipal Center right here, we look for southern-facing roof planes. Southern-facing is, you know, that's going to get the most sun throughout the day. Where we're positioned in New York State, you know, we can still do the west and east and still get good production, but getting the most bang for your buck out of those systems is that south-facing roof. So what myself and my colleague Shane Nolan and I have done over the last couple weeks is broken down each meter that the town has. And we received the bills, we did our analysis, and what we look for is special meters that have a certain, basically, kilowatt hour charge. So, you know, whether that's the, you know, the traffic light meter that, you know, runs at 17 cents a kilowatt hour, or we 18 Travers Road has a meter that is 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Those meters are the ones you want to tie into as a commercial customer, because when you tie into those meters, you get credited at that cent when you're dished out. So say, you know, the larger buildings only have a 11 cent a kilowatt hour charge. Well, you're getting a 15 cent credit if you push the power through that meter. So that's kind of how we discovered some of these sites and realized, okay, well, we've got a great meter here, we've got a great meter here, we've got a great meter here. Let's see if we can push the entire town's usage through those meters and really save them as much money as possible. And, you know, as the landfill goes, we would actually have to drop a meter there, and it would be a remote net metering meter that would go there. And there is a standard remote net meter rate that kind of fluctuates between 13.5 cents and 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So there is that option, but once again, that's the competitive bid option that you have to wait on, and then plus the development of the landfill, which is a little complex. But, you know, that's definitely still an option, but not an immediate option. We found better meters than a remote net meter option, like I said, at the Municipal Center and at Gavin Park, which you see the roof space here, as well as some ground space. And the Wilton Wildlife Preserve, we also found a good meter there. That's the only reason that we kind of put it up. You know, we don't want to disturb any untouched land if we don't have to. So we obviously, that would kind of be a last choice to look at. But it's 20-year energy savings. So year one, you would be paying the financier of the project $48,400 a year. which approximately right now you're paying the utility provider roughly $60,000 a year, give or take, depending on those crazy winter months that jack up the energy bills. This is kind of an average calculation. The difference, being $11,400 with no upfront costs. So let me backtrack a little bit. The reason that there's no upfront cost is because those third-party financiers who are looking for these projects, they put up the money for these projects. And then companies like myself develop it, and companies like Apex install it. And they maintain it over the course of 20 years. So there would be no cost to the community whatsoever, just automatic savings. Everything's maintained. Any problem, it's not, with the system, we would track down through our monitoring systems that we install, and we would come in and fix it. And that's, from year 1 to year 20. It's in our best interest for it to produce as much power as possible so that there can be a return to our investors. So this model is exactly what's used with every single municipality that we've worked with in the Capital District and the other companies have worked with in the Capital District. It's really a great way for towns and school districts to cut down their bottom line and kind of reinvest slowly into the community. So the development process, there's a contract signing, you go through, you evaluate what buildings can really take it, you go through, you look at the, every electrical system, and obviously, in this case, the board needs to make a decision with, with the opinion of the community involved to see if this would be a good option. But, once you take a look at the buildings, you go through, there's an engineering team that we send this information out to. They do the entire design of all the drawings. That goes through both NYSERDA and to National Grid through an application process. And I'm assuming the permitting process will be pretty simple in the town. And then, you kind of wait for the approval and you build the project, get it commissioned, and, start saving money. So it's a process that's been refined over the last 3 years in New York State and has matured to the point where, everyone's jumping on board. And it's, the advantages are there when you talk about both your environmental footprint as a community. Everyone wants to be sustainable in some way, shape, or form. Everyone wants to save money, and just being able to affect all those things at once, and using it as an educational tool for both schools and extracurricular programs that can come in and take a look at the panels. It's a pretty cool thing. You can take a look at the Skidmore project that Shane's company just put up a couple weeks ago, or commissioned a couple weeks ago. That's a pretty big field. That's 2 million watts of solar. That's going to cover the entire usage for Skidmore and save them a lot of money each year. And I'm going to end with this: that the the United States Department of Energy predicts and has shown in graphs and calculations that there's been a steady rise in utility rates over the last 20 years. And they're only going to keep rising, especially if a carbon tax comes up or more coal-fired power plants shut down and natural gas gets more expensive or cheaper, how the market kind of fluctuates. That's all going to affect our power prices. And this kind of allows you to hedge each year your budget, saying, hey, this is what I'm going to be paying for energy. And that allows you to allocate money to different resources and to really plan for the future in a sustainable way. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them. And thank you very much for your time.
Questions? I have a couple, Ryan. First of all, your projected savings, is that based on panels at the landfill or here, or it's the same for either place they're located?
It would be a little bit less at the landfill because we had found meters that were worth a little bit more on these facilities. So, you're looking anywhere between probably, I would say, $1,000 less a year, but compounded over that length of time. could be tens of thousands, or maybe even more. So.
Yeah, well, what number of panels are you talking about, either on the roof here or at the landfill?
Yep.
What are we talking about?
So a 200,000 watt system using commercial grade panels would be roughly 650 to 700 panels. Now the installation process is pretty non-intrusive, and once it's up there, there's no maintenance. Everything is stamped by an outside structural engineer if we're putting out a roof. All these racking systems that actually hold the panels are warranted and pre-engineered and stamped, and there's not a lot of doubt as far as once it gets up there. So,
What percentage of our electrical power, solar power, would take to actually accommodate our facility?
Yep. So 400,000 watts it would potentially be. Now the town uses approximately 550 to 600,000 kilowatt hours a year. So a 400,000 watt system or two 200,000 watt systems will produce approximately 425,000 kilowatt hours a year. Now remember, you're getting credited at a monetary rate, so I'm trying to cover basically the monetary end of your bill. So it won't be covering the exact usage, but it'll be covering the monetary end, which in turn saves you more money.
So we would be off of National Grid.
We wouldn't be off completely. There are still supply charges, like the little bottom end charges that pile up, but that 11.4 calculates those in. So.
Because you wouldn't be able to cover all of our electrical needs.
Right.
That's why we'd still need
So
National Grid.
there would still be a $1,500 bill at the end of the year, or something similar, but it's very minimal because you have to pay to be a National Grid customer. So.
Anything else?
Do you have a question for you back there?
What happens at the end of 20 years?
Yep.
And what's the life expectancy of the panels and cells? How does that get maintained? I know you said once it goes up, it's kind of maintenance free, but nothing lasts forever.
So actually, all of these panels are performance guaranteed for 25 years. And to answer your very first question, as far as what would happen at the end of 20 years, it would all be negotiated in the contract with the financier and the development company and the build company. But basically, you could either purchase the panels at fair market value, you can extend the purchase power agreement for another 10, 20 years, or they could take the panels off and repair the roof, do whatever you need to do. But basically, this technology has really evolved to a point where these panels are going to last for 35, 40 years. Some of the panels that were made in 1975 are still around today. The only part of the system that does fail is the inverter. It fails right now around about 10 years, but once again, there'd be no liability to this, to the town, because you wouldn't own the system, we would own the system, we would come in, swap the inverters real quick, and that would be it. So.
Leasing.
Couple questions. So the power that the town uses that's not generated from the panels, are we purchasing that from you, or are we purchase that from National Grid?
So you'd be purchasing that from National Grid. What happens in the process is when we do an application, National Grid comes in and they swap out the meters to give a net meter. It's a bi-directional meter that actually goes backwards. So during the summertime, you're cranking out energy, you're covering the whole building's usage. It's actually spinning backwards. You get credits. So like during the winter, when the system isn't producing as much, you have those credits built up, and since we're talking about monetary credits, it's all just kind of built up at the end of one calendar year, and that's really what you're getting credit for. So you're not officially off the grid, you're never off the grid, because in New York State you have to be interconnected to the grid in order for them to even get funded. But monetarily you're getting all that credit for that solar, even when you're pulling.
Second question I have, and I guess I'm just being skeptical, and I don't wish this on anybody. It's 5 years down the line, town puts all these panels up, your company goes bankrupt. What happens?
So it's not my company that is going to...
So the company would contract with.
Right, and so it is my company that is ultimately going to enter this maintenance agreement, but it's the third-party financer that is the real driver behind all of this, because they want their investment back for 20 years. Now, we talk about third-party financing, we talk, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, some very larger companies that have been around a long time. That's where you have to go to get your bankroll for all of this. And actually, part of the process within the entire, the steps that it takes is to get the, to go through a credit check basically, and to make sure that that financer is comfortable with the town actually not going bankrupt, or the commercial, entity not going bankrupt over 20 years. So.
But the town doesn't own the panels.
One more question for me. When you put those numbers up earlier, the savings, did you include that federal credit involved in that? I wasn't sure if that would be a credit, something that we'd be actually able to get, because we're not a private company.
Right, so you can't take that credit, that third-party financer takes it. That's actually what they're getting, that's what they're going for, that's why they get, skin in the game is to get that credit. So.
Okay.
Yeah, one last question. Is there some type of termination clause in the contract if we're not happy with it, or we're not meeting these estimates? Is there an escape clause, a termination clause to get out of the contract?
Yep, so, that can all be negotiated during the process. The cool thing about a purchase power agreement is you're only buying the power that's produced, so if it's not producing...
The startup cost for the town is...
None.
That's what I thought.
And so if the panels aren't producing, it just means that you're buying your power from National Grid, and it means that our financiers and myself are screwed
not
up.
happy.
Exactly. And that's why everything's closely monitored with both weather monitoring, production monitoring, that is all hooked up to the systems, and you can actually view online as both the town and the financer and myself. So.
Any other questions? Okay, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's starting to cool down in here.
Sounds good. The idea of it, I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I did.
It's good.
Okay, next, Mr. Zach talked a little bit about the Maple Avenue Middle School sign. I just wanted, Ryan has some information to bring us up to date on where that stands. We're aware of the sign, and that the sign is in Wilton, and Ryan, you want to just bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, I've spoken to the superintendent of the schools. They were not aware of this being an issue, and we actually have a formal letter sending out to the superintendent of the schools to address the sign and take corrective action, what they need to do for the town. They were unaware of the requirements, so.
Question on that. It says here, the zoning, at their discussion for their property administration advisory committee, that the town of Wilton okayed the zoning. So I couldn't find any record of that in any of the zoning notes.
That's not correct. No, I mean, no. I see what you say, zoning is okay with the town of Wilton, but that's...
Yeah, I got that from the school.
They never even questioned it, or came in here to question the zoning. So, I guess, we're going to be working with the school district and get to the bottom of this and take whatever actions necessary on their part and our part to make them comply. Okay, this is also you, Ryan, this resolution undertaking New York State DOT, the Councilman Lant and had brought up about the generator hookups with both generators, and that DOT's going to agree to install them, and I guess this resolution is needed.
Yeah, this is a standard form for New York State DOT for the town of Wilton employees, highway department, to work in the DOT right of way. Just standard document that the town signs, and the resolution approving it.
Need a motion?
Mark, have you had the opportunity to look at this?
No, but if it's DOT and it's this gender form, it's highly unlikely we'll have much input. But I can look at it if you like. I have not had the opportunity.
You want to have the opportunity before?
Entirely up to the board.
It's their standard document. It's, all the towns sign it. It's either this, or you can submit, every time we have to work in the right-of-way, we have to submit a form.
It's
So this
highly
way-
unlikely I have any meaningful input.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion with the supervisor signs it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Let's see, Board of Assessment Review, Carol Green's appointment expires at the end of September. Was she contacted about whether she wanted to serve again?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Carol.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Committee reports. Any? Well, I have one. As I stated at our last meeting, I was going, at this particular meeting, I was going to appoint a comprehensive plan update committee. And I'd like to tonight announce those committee members. First, from the town board is Councilwoman Joanne Klepetar and Councilman Steve Stryker. From the planning board is Michael Dobis and Ron Sloan. From the zoning board is Chris Ramsdale and Bob Barrett. If also, the committee will utilize Jackie Hates, who's the Director of Planning Services from MJ Engineering. She'll be on a consultant basis to this committee for any type of planning advice that they may need. The same goes for our town attorney, Mark Schachter. He will be accessible for legal advice. Staff people, Ryan, our Director of Planning and Engineering, will be the committee coordinator. Mark Mikens, our Building and Code Enforcement Officer, will be available to the committee as well. And taking minutes would be Lucy Harlow, Secretary. So that's the committee, and Ryan will set up an organizational meeting and get things going.
Ask a question.
Yeah.
As far as like the input from the public, how will they be involved in this?
There'll be public hearings once the committee is finished with its work. If we need more than one, or maybe progressive ones as we go along, I don't know. It's an update to an existing plan. I don't see that there's going to be a need, there'll be a lot of exchanges, but it'll certainly be open, transparent, and the public will have opportunity for comment as we go along, and definitely at public hearings before anything is adopted.
Yeah. I heard the word consultant. Are we getting the budget for this?
Oh, yeah, I was estimating to start off with a budget of, say, $5,000 for the committee.
For this year or for next year?
Well, I would say for this year. They're going to get started probably in another month. I don't see it'll be, I just came up with that number.
Yeah.
Just to have something to work with.
Okay. Well, we're going to do a budget amendment
Right.
for that money.
We hold off, we're not going to receive any bills.
Okay, so we'll do it next month. We'll do it next month.
Okay, so the committee
I'd like
report.
to see, we put something on our website that the public's, their input, they can send it, and this committee will look at it.
Yeah, we can, there'll be minutes taken of the
Well,
committee
like on our
meeting.
website, we've got, I think that, and take people's, whatever they, how
Yeah,
they
we
feel,
can, we'll put the minutes
what
up
they
there
like
and
to
then.
see done in the town.
Yeah, I think we should learn from the mistakes of the past and make sure that people are involved and it's not, something that's being done. you know.
I agree, and they will be involved as they can. As far as the workings of the committee, we'll take whatever input we get whenever it's offered.
If you like, I can create a separate webpage just for the comprehensive plan update and throw everything on it. That'd be easier.
If you think that would work better.
When the meetings are, and, okay.
Controllers report.
Okay, the first items that require town board approval are the budget transfers and budget amendments. Any questions?